Welcome back to another episode of SuckcessFull, the podcast.
I'm one of your hosts, Blake, and joining me,
I'm one of your other hosts, Justin.
And this is the podcast all about the not so subtle truth about success and
the art of sucking less in pursuit of it. Let's not waste any more time and get right to the show. I have known you for, I don't know, let's say a year and a half, almost 2 years. I've never seen you in a flannel shirt before. I'm nervous. I don't know what's happening. I feel like I don't even know you anymore. Tell me, what's going on?
I only own two. This one was my brother's. And then I have a red one. Actually, that's interesting. I never thought about that. The red one is from an ex from college that he never wore the shirt. I liked the shirt, took the shirt. So both my flannels are not mine, technically. I mean, they are now, but they weren't originally. So that's interesting. I never noticed that until you brought it up.
Again, that's what I'm here for. I'm to divulge past bad experiences so that you can have a good one now. It's like a therapy session, right? So today, I'm really excited. We're going to talk about a subject that we've hinted at before, and it's getting to be the holiday season here. And I think that people really need to understand this more. And there was a great article the other day on this exact topic that really spawned this conversation that I was, when I proposed it to you. And that is how to take a vacation, actually take a vacation and enjoy it. I'm going to give you one backstory here real quick as to what really spawned this for me so that we can dive into this. So I've got a client that went on vacation in Mexico. They were so stressed. The rationale for the stress was not warranted per se. It was just like they were stressed about the business, everything else. And anyways, ended up getting cellulitis. And it was so...
Wait, what is cellulitis?
All right, please, you can use that.
Oh, no. Am I going to regret asking this question?
No, just don't look it up. Here's the deal. Just don't look it up. Okay. So basically, it is like a skin infection. So there's like the epidermis and the dermis layer, and the bacteria gets in between there. It basically, most of the time, it's not a big deal. So you actually have strep living on your skin all the time, right? Like strep throat, but you have it on your skin, which still grosses me out. But anyways, it gets into that layer, and that's called cellulitis. What happens is it usually happens when you're stressed or you get a bad cut or you're in dirty water. That kind of stuff is what kind of spawns that big boost of it. Well, what made it so bad is she sent a picture. I'm like, let me see, how bad is it? And it was just like bright red. It had blisters. I mean, it was up her entire leg. And then I'm thinking it's just one leg. And it's the other leg too. So instead of going to a doctor, she went, because in Mexico, you can get anything over the counter, basically. So she just loads herself up on prednisone, which is a steroid, 3 antibiotics, and somehow within a week, she made it through. But I was like, this is not the way to vacation. That is the worst thing on earth. First of all, you should never when you're that far along the process here, you should go to a doctor always. Just good advice. Secondly, you're on vacation. You should enjoy your vacation, especially when you're thousands of miles away.
Well, and okay, my mind immediately goes, you're in Mexico. Are you sure it's cellulitis? Not to, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. Mexico is one of those places, depending on where you're at. I mean, you're not even supposed to drink the water.
I would say 80% of the world you're not supposed to. But yes.
That too, yeah.
Well, I sent the picture to my brother. So this is the only reason I know that it's cellulitis.
Okay.
Right? I sent it to my brother. And my brother's response was, maybe we'll screenshot it and put it in here. Didn't even say anything other than tell her to medevac to the United States immediately. She could die.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah. So because the way he describes it is basically, so it's in between the skin layer. Your body fights it with inflammation. So it gets red and swollen and all that stuff because your blood's rushing to it. Well, what happens is over time, if it stays for a while, it starts rupturing. So then it gets into your blood, right? Because it's broken that blood skin barrier, and then it just contaminates your body. And by that point in time, if it gets that far, I mean, most of the time you definitely lose limbs, but you almost always die too.
Oh my gosh. Ugh, that's terrible.
Overstress. And the thing is, when she went back home, she got it diagnosed, and it was 100%, 100% stress related.
Oh man, that's horrible. Your body does really strange things when you're under a lot of stress. I mean, just not even from the mental standpoint, physical body. And me personally, I have eczema, which is an autoimmune disease. So when I get stressed, it'll just start popping up all over the place. So, and I have it on my face and my neck. So there's been times, there was one time in college I actually had to get steroid shots because it was so bad that the like steroid cream and stuff that they usually give you for it wasn't working. And it was all down my face, down my neck. It went down my entire back, down both of my arms. It was getting really bad. And it just kept spreading. And it was spreading like literally as the dermatologist was looking at it, which is very unusual. And he was like, oh my God. And I think he gave me like 3 different shots. And I was like,
you were like, I'd much rather have harder drugs.
Well, I mean, it was more just like uncomfortable though, because it's like itchy and stuff, it's like a rash. I don't know. It made me sick is what it did. Like I felt so nauseous between the shots and that. But that was before they realized that it's in connection to being allergic to dairy. That was part of it. At least mine is. For those of you who have eczema who've been struggling all your life like I have with it, it's probably the dairy.
Good lesson for everybody out there that if you are suffering from something like that and you're not under a lot of stress, right? Like let's say you break out an eczema or you've got some sort of skin thing or your stomach's upset, whatever. It's great to start reducing your diet to get to that point where you can start finding out what might be causing it. I've just learned the other day that these whole things about non-irritating. So like sunflower seeds, I love sunflower seeds. I love sunflower butter. I love all that stuff. Well, apparently now that's like listed as an allergen for some people. And I'm like, oh my God.
I guess that makes sense because it's a seed or whatever. Because like some people are allergic to nuts, so I guess that makes sense.
It totally does. But that, I guess, it's one of those things that if you don't think about it every day, it just kind of goes in the back of your mind. So let's say you start getting like a lot of people start getting like a fuzzy throat is what I call it. Like not a sore throat, but you can just feel something's wrong in there. That's a sign that you're probably eating something you shouldn't be. So start reducing that stuff. But the biggest thing of this whole thing is we all treat stress differently. Thank God I don't have eczema, but for me, like the minute I start getting stressed, I get really flushed. Like for me, it like moves up my throat, whatever, and you can see it in my face, and that's what happens to me. And again, if a few deep breaths, it goes away. But also, like for me, I can't sleep when I'm stressed. Like that's
either.
I hate it. It like ruins everything.
It makes it worse. It makes everything worse.
Yes. I mean, I get crabby. I mean, I don't know about you, but like I get crabby, I get moody, I get just irritated. Everything irritates me.
I have no patience when I'm tired. No patience at all. I go from like being completely zen to like 100 in like 2 seconds.
Oh, really? You want to say that to me today? Today's not that day. Yes.
Not today, Satan.
The power of Christ compels you. We were at dinner last night. The soccer season ended and there were 2 dads there, and one of them goes back and forth to India all the time, and he was talking about how much he hates it and how stupid it is. He's from India, but he's just like the time change, it's just brutal. He'll go like for a week and then come back for a week and then go for a week, and he's just like, it's just killing my body.
Wait, that consistently? Gosh, that's a lot of traveling. That's big traveling. Ugh.
Well, I mean, technically, so the rule of thumb is that every hour per time zone, right? So it's, a day per time zone. So for them, it depends on, like India, I think is depending on where you're on the country. Like, I think for me, it's 11 and a half hour difference. So, I mean, that's 12 days. So to even just get back to normal. So you're coming back, you're never getting back to normal.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting. Well, but I haven't been overseas outside of like the Bahamas. That's still on my bucket list because every time I was supposed to go, like something happened or came up or whatever. And now apparently there's somebody I know who's a travel agent, and everybody's scared to travel and leave the United States right now.
So I leave for London soon. Again, I have to go back, and I got to tell you, I went to go log in on British Airways. So this is not a good example of how to reduce stress. Okay. You guys can all do this now. It's still there. There's this giant banner at the top. Giant. I mean, it's probably an inch wide on my computer. It's huge. And it keeps scrolling. And it says, all international travelers beware. No flights to Tel Aviv. International conditions or something. And I'm like, you can go to it right now and look. I'm just like, are you kidding me? I can't wait to get on that flight. Like, what the heck? I mean, it definitely it raised my stress levels. And to your friend that's a travel agent, I don't blame them. I mean, it's a very weird time in the world, so it's not a bad time to stay home.
Yeah, for sure. Well, but I will say, so kind of getting on to like the reducing stress and things like that. When I went to the film festival a few months ago, I usually, for my other content, I post twice a day, and I post short content in reels every day. And then I post long form content Monday through Friday. So I was worried when I went to the film festival about not posting because everything was happening all at once because I had to go to the festival. I had to drive up there, which was unusual because of the way everything was set up. On top of that, I was moving. So I didn't have time. Like I started getting ahead, but the second I got ahead, I had all this other stuff I had to do. So it was going to be consistently like going to the festival and then having to come back and do the posting and like the recording and all that. And I was like, I'm not doing that. Like I need to be present for the festival. So I ended up posting saying, hey, I'm at a festival. I'm going to be on hiatus for the next, I think it was like 4 days or something like that.
Years.
And I thought it was going to cause like a huge problem. And everybody was like, okay, like enjoy your time, all this stuff. They were very supportive. There was no issues at all. But then when I got back in town, I immediately was hit by a teenager and they rear-ended my car. So I had to deal with all of that. So I ended up having to post and say, hey, I'm in the middle of moving. This is happening. Like, I got to take like a week or two to get everything taken care of. I was like, crap, my algorithms are going to be all messed up because especially YouTube is very unforgiving of not posting consistently. Instagram is like whatever, TikTok, whatever, you can kind of make up for it a little bit faster. But YouTube is not like when you don't post. That was frustrating because I had just reached a new milestone in terms of how many views and how much interaction I was getting that it was like a new tier of that. So long story short, it took about like 2.5 weeks to get my algorithm kind of back to normal. It's still not where it was, but it's still like I didn't actually lose any subscribers or followers really at all. After like the first couple days of posting, I didn't lose views and interaction. It actually didn't really impact me that much, aside from the YouTube algorithm taking a little bit longer, but it didn't impact me in a negative way, like long term. So I think for those of you, especially if you're content creators or, something like that, or you're posting consistently, it's okay to not post. Now tell your followers and stuff you're not going to be there so that they aren't expecting you. And, a week goes by and they're like, well, where the hell is she or him or whoever? But like, you can take a break.
You need to take a break. I'm just going to start there. You must take breaks. Okay. First of all, I think it's a great point. And I think it's a great life example there of how you did it. The other thing, I'm going to take a piece of what you said there, and that is the communication piece of it. Setting those clear expectations, people will respect you more. If you're ghosting and all of a sudden drop and they're like, what the heck happened? Yeah, that's going to affect you. But if you're communicating effectively and also setting those boundaries. So for me, like when I go on vacation, whether it's with clients or businesses I'm working with or individuals or even family members, I always let them know my expectations. Here's the hours I'll be available. Here's the hours I won't be. I'm going to take a few days where I'm 100% off the grid. And these are those dates. I will not reply back. A lot of people go, how do you do that? How do you not do that? Because otherwise they're always going to bombard you. They're going to keep, the more you give yourself and you like don't ever take boundaries, they're going to keep taking. And at some point it almost becomes a cult. Like
wait, what? What do you mean?
So much. They rely on you so much. I found that like some people, especially some clients, like if you're always available and always on, they expect you to always be that way. And so it becomes a point where it's like, they need you, and that's not healthy either. It needs to be a symbiotic, not a parasitic relationship. And it needs to be the point where you've got boundaries. Part of going on vacation is that you're setting a boundary for yourself saying, look, this time is mine. We're on the third rock from the sun. We've only got a limited time in this world. And even if you believe in reincarnation, I believe you still got to take advantage of each day. You've got to enjoy it. Some days are going to suck, as we just learned. Getting in a car accident, doing all those things, even though you did great at the festival, it's stressful. It's everything else. It's nerve-wracking, but you got to take the time for yourself. Setting boundaries is probably the biggest thing that I would offer to everybody, and the expectation of those boundaries. So it's not like, for instance, if you put an out of office and say, I will return on Monday XYZ, they don't know, are you going to reply during that time? Are you still available? Whatever. But if you're really specific and say, I will get to emails, or I'll get to my texts, or I'll get to my DMs, or I'll get to, my posts, whatever, on a certain date. In the meantime, this is what I'm doing. It's a lot different, and you're very clear in what you're doing. So when you communicate your expectations and your goals and what you're going to be doing, be really clear.
I agree. And I think you kind of said something too that is it's a little off topic, but I think it still applies because it gets into sort of the understanding of reducing stress. The communication part, there is also such a thing as communicating too much. If you're constantly on email and you're on email more than like doing your actual work, that's a problem. And I think sometimes we get so caught up in the idea of, oh, we have to respond to every single person or every single thing. And I've even had that problem because, especially on my YouTube channel, I mean, I have like 500 notifications and stuff, and I can't get to all of them. So I even tell people, I'm like, listen, if there's something like you really, really want me to respond, try different avenues, because I'm not going to check 500 notifications every day on YouTube. It's not happening. I'm sorry. I don't have time for that. Like, it is what it is. It's not that I don't, appreciate it and all that stuff, but it's just at some point a line's got to be drawn. So I think with that, communicate what you need to communicate, but don't feel also like you have to communicate every little thing. I think what Justin said about, drawing the boundaries and parameters of it and saying, I'm available these days, I'm not these days when you're on vacation, is very important, but also doing that in your day-to-day routines. I've had clients who they try to call me at 2:00 in the morning. Okay. If it's not an emergency, don't be calling me at 2:00 in the morning. I understand we're on set and whatever, but like, I'm asleep.
And as we talked about before, if you don't get sleep, you don't want to talk to me anyways. So it's a lose-lose. Especially
me. Side note, my siblings and my mom used to be terrified to wake me up because I would just be like,
get out. Well, yeah. See, we have kind of the opposite in our house. Like we're just all early risers for whatever reason, except for my 14-year-old. He's obviously, he likes to sleep in a little bit, but 7 is sleeping in. So he's not like a late sleeper. But Bailey every morning wakes up to this alarm. And now I don't know why she gets up at the same time every day, but she has she sets 3 different Alexa alarms. So like it starts out like ringing, and then it plays like some Taylor Swift song. And then it plays this like me. And it's all going at the same time, coming from the same speaker, which I didn't know you could do in Alexa. And I heard it for the first time this morning. I'm like, what are you doing, chick? You're going to wake everyone up. She's like, I just got to make sure I get out of bed. I'm like, you're already up. Turn them off.
That is funny. On the flip side of that, my sister is on night schedule, which I don't know how it's because she's trying to make sure she can do her school and stuff and study. But anyway, that schedule's been hard for her to adjust to. She sleeps through like a nuclear bomb. I don't understand. Like there's times her alarm will be going off and it is so loud. You can hear it on the opposite end of the house and she sleeps through it. And I'm like, how the heck? Like that, first off, that would be annoying to me. Like, how do you, I don't know, but she literally can sleep through anything.
Okay, this ties in with the stress theme and the relaxation piece of this and the getting away piece of this. So I had a college roommate, Joel, I'm going to call you out here. First time in college, your first time you're away from everything and living on your own. The first couple days are like orientation. So there's not like a schedule, right? So like, I think we got in like on a Thursday and we didn't start till Mondays. We basically had 4 days of kind of chill. So I'm like, he's a great roommate. It's great so far. Monday rolls around. He sets his alarm for 5:30, but it's exactly like your sister. It's so loud that it's like, I wake up in a state of panic. It was like, boom, boom. That's not great either. When you are in a state of panic or stress like that, don't do that to yourself repeatedly. Like if you have to get up that way, there's got to be a better way. I wear a Whoop, it vibrates. You can get something that rather than that, obviously the noise isn't working for you. So fine. There's a million other things. It's 2023. Like there's a million ways to wake up. Do it. It's for your sanity and for everyone else around you.
Well, and I will tell you, since I've moved, my room is very dark. So the first week that I was here, I could not wake up in the morning because it was so dark. It made me just want to continue sleeping. I would sleep for like 9 hours even, and I'd be like, so what I did is I got a smart light. I put it above my bed and it's scheduled with Alexa to turn on at a certain time every day in the morning. Since that's happened, half the time I wake up before my alarm. But sometimes like people who sleep with their everything closed and it's black when you wake up, I don't know how people function. Like, how does your circadian rhythm like not be like completely out of whack? I don't understand.
I don't know. So like, I was in Alaska last year. Those kind of climates, like in the summertime, it's light for 22, sometimes 23 hours a day. And they have, blackout curtains, but it is very weird because I noticed that like we went to bed at midnight one night and I still wasn't tired. So like there, it's like the opposite. you have to have the blackouts, but then the morning, it like messed me up because like you said, it's so dark that you feel like it's still night. You look at the clock, you're like, whoa, it's, like 7:30, whatever. It really messes with you. So I totally agree that the idea of the pitch black is great when you actually sleep, but getting up, like having a smart light is awesome. And does it fade in like where it gets like lighter as it goes, or is it like a certain tone, or
you can do it that way. For me, I just have it turned straight on to as bright as it can be because it works better for me that way because it's too dark in here for me to function. But they do have ones that do that. And they actually do have something called a sunlight, which is supposed to replicate the sun. So it'll slowly get brighter. And then in the evening, it slowly dims and stuff like that. So, and that one I think is like made with a different kind of light bulb. I haven't had an issue with the smart light. For anybody who struggles with that, highly recommend. But I will tell you, when I was in Seattle for work a couple years ago, I was there in June or July. The sun sets at like midnight and it rises at 5 o'clock in the morning. So that totally threw me off because the place I was staying at had a skylight. I would be waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning thinking, oh my God, I slept in. We got to go to set. And it's 5 o'clock in the morning. Felt like noon to me, but it's just the light to me, I've noticed really makes a big difference. And it makes a big difference on my energy throughout the day and my stress level throughout the day because of the way my body responds to the light and the dark. And like I said, like when I didn't have this light in here, I was tired all day. I mean, it was just like I had to drink so much coffee and I'm sleeping extra hours. I mean, it really messed me up. And honestly, they suggest that when you wake up, you're actually supposed to spend at least 30 minutes outside with unfiltered light, meaning no sunglasses, no, like my glasses, my prescription glasses also have blue screen because I'm on the computer all the time. Taking all that stuff off because it's supposed to help reset your system and keep your circadian rhythm going correctly.
Actually, this is an awesome segue because I was looking to say next is the idea of, especially on vacation and not feeling guilty about it, is make sure that when you get out, you spend time outside, whether it's relaxing on the beach or getting out just in general. Being outside, like especially for those that work in office buildings repetitively over and over again, getting outside is so important. And especially on vacation, I find when I'm out in the sun, and I'm religious about sunscreen. So what I do is like I take the first 15 minutes and I'll go out and I'm like, all right, here we go. All right, son, do your thing. And then I lather up. Make sure I get the vitamin D, I get everything else. But being outside, there's something like cathartic about being outside just in general. And it's so soothing. It's so relaxing. And one of the things I've told people before too, especially when I've had like long days and I'm in the office and I'm really stressed, is I will tell them I am taking a half hour for me. I'm going to go walk. And what was really weird when I did it, I was working downtown for almost 2.5 years. And it was funny because at first everyone's like, oh, there goes Prust again. He's going on his walk. By the end, I had like 6 people that were joining me every day at the same time. Mm-hmm. We all loved it, had a great time, and it became like an actual event. And it was a great way to bond. It was a great way, and it was an unbelievable stress reliever because the first thing you do once you leave the building is you start talking about what's going wrong. It becomes therapeutic, and you're outside and you're walking around and you're laughing and you're griping and all that stuff. And I think it's really helpful. So when we talk about like not feeling guilty about going on vacation and stepping away, I think even those moments, because there's a lot of people in today's world, for whatever reason, feel even guilty about doing those little things and don't, because as we've talked about in this podcast before, you're always more productive when you're in a safe space. Okay. When you're in a state of panic and agitation and worry, that is not a great place to make decisions. And I've got a client right now that's making decisions left and right, just flying by the seat of their pants. I'm like, what in God's name are you doing? You're paying for my advice, but you're not taking any of it. It's just very interesting to me. So please learn from other people's mistakes, because when you see people in that agitated state, it is a great opportunity for you to remind yourself of what happens to you when you get to that state. That kind of, as we keep talking about this, that kind of I'm going to lead into my other point here. And that was, if you need a reminder of what it's like to be on vacation, one of the things that I do every year, it usually starts in August, but it started this year in October. And I think because it's the writers, or I think it had to do with the writer's strike and all that stuff that was going on. But it was, please, audience, you're allowed to judge me, comment below. I'm sure Blake's going to roll her eyes here in a second. But one of the shows that puts me in this like vacation state, and it makes me so glad to be me, is I watch Bachelor in Paradise. It's the only Bachelor show I watch. It is.
Wait, what? Really?
It is.
I was not expecting that at all. I thought you were going to say something else.
See, that's I knew you were. That's why I'm going here for a sec, because it just makes you feel good about yourself, because you see these people and their complaints and how insane it is and just their lifestyle and what they gripe over. And it's a great grounding for me, especially after a stressful day. I'm like, oh man, I got it made. It's just, for me, it's like a virtual therapy for a second. And plus just hearing these people that, a couple of them were like 24, 25 and thinking how wise they are. Like there was one guy that was on this season, I think his name was Sean, and it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. He kept saying, and he would say this truthfully to the camera. He'd be like, I know I look like a Ken doll. And underneath his name, they'd be like, does not look anything like a Ken doll. It was fun things like that, just being so self-unaware. It's a great escape for me. So if you're struggling and you can't get away, and for you were talking about a second ago, you always want to go to Europe. Little moments like that, it's a fun way to do a virtual escape that's very safe, very, I think it's healthy. And it's really fun because I always walk away. I watch it with Kelly and she's always like, I can't believe she did that, and I'm just giggling at all the stuff that she's saying too. So it's just like, it is a great, relaxing, fun ride for me. So if you are struggling with getting away and you're worried, take that hour and 20 minutes on Hulu or on whatever it is. Maybe it's on Peacock. I don't remember. But whatever it's on, do something for you. What are your thoughts?
I agree. Do something for you, but you said a couple of interesting things here. So the first thing is you were talking about solving problems when you're going for a walk. They've actually proven that walking actually does get your brain to solve problems and it reduces stress. That's an excellent way to sort of harness that energy. As far as some of the other things you were saying, what I think we need to do is we need to change our perspective on vacation. A lot of us see it as like, oh, we have to get away. It's almost like this like sacrifice in a way. It's like, oh, I have to leave work and, I it's something that's like a luxury. It's viewed as a luxury. I think you got to start looking at it from the perspective of this is an investment in me, because I think a lot of times we don't take that time. But when you take that time to recharge, to care for yourself, to have fun, it makes you a lot more productive and a lot more happy. And that's also in the stillness of things is when you start getting divine guidance. It's when you tap into your creativity. It's when a lot of things will pop up for you that you can solve problems, you can come up with really awesome ideas, and it allows you to be in a different headspace. It allows you to work and move forward in a way where you're not like stuck in the rat race. To change your perspective on the vacationing part is the first step. But then what I've actually struggled with is figuring out how to do that every day, in the sense that what I started doing more recently is in the mornings, I have like a certain routine that I do for myself. I actually had a client I had to teach this to yesterday because she was having the same problem where she was like, I feel like I don't know where I'm meant to be going in my career. I know I have a business and I'm doing these things, but I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. Like I can't focus. And I said, well, your problem is you're doing too much at one time. You're thinking that by slowing down, you're somehow sacrificing something, or you are putting yourself behind is a good one. Yes. But the truth is that when you slow down to speed up, as Justin likes to say, you end up being able to be a lot more intentional about how you're moving forward. So since I started this new routine over the last several months, I get things done that would have taken me 3 days in 1 hour. I mean, my productivity and my focus is just like, boom. It's a very different energy and there's less stress. There's also this energy of ease and flow instead of resistance and like struggle and obstacles. A lot of us don't realize how much slowing that down and getting in the right energy and being intentional really helps with moving forward. We all have this idea that somehow by taking a break or slowing down or taking time for ourselves or going on vacation, that we're somehow getting behind in the race. Success is a mindset. You got to start looking at your successes as being an amplification of who you are versus being the end all be all and defining you. And that's what my client yesterday, she was like, oh my God, I do tie my happiness and self-worth to the outcome and to my perceived successes or failures. A lot of that gets down to the way you view success, and it also gets down to the way you view taking that time for yourself. And I think that is the root of the problem, is we have to change our mindset towards vacationing, towards self-care, to realize that it is an investment in self instead of this like thing to be sacrificed, or, oh, I can't do this because I'm going to get behind.
It's weird, right? So for me, you're 100% right. But I guess what I'm trying to think here is like manic energy, because I think to me that is, and unfortunately in my life, and you saying it here really is hitting home with me for a second. I think I've surrounded myself a lot with clients that have manic energy, that are they're either like super happy or they are stressed to a point where it's like obnoxious. And it's very interesting, kind of having an epiphany here that I think it's the manic energy that it's draining for most people to be around. And I found that especially a lot of leaders in this world are manic, and that's actually like one of the worst things you can be, because you need to be on all the time. And most people, in fact, I would say all people, don't function well there, right? I love the people that are like, I don't need sleep, I don't need whatever. Well, okay, you're going to die soon. I mean, that's not a thing. There's no such thing as like, I don't need sleep, I'm always on. That's just not a thing.
It's seen as a rite of passage. It like, oh, I overworked myself and I did this and I did that, like as a rite of passage. That's not something to be proud about. And the whole idea of what you said, the people who are always like, oh, I don't need sleep. Just because you can function with a little sleep and be somewhat productive doesn't mean that you are working at your highest productivity level or focus level. Yeah. That just means that you can push through. But if you're doing that all the time, is that really the energy you want to be in? And I think that's the question we need to be asking ourselves is, do we want to be fighting to get to our perceived success, where it's a constant battle? You're pushing the rock up the hill. The rock keeps like having, at any second you get too tired and the rock will crush you. Or do you want to move forward with ease and tranquility? And it is a choice at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. So here's kind of a landing point for me that happened again last night, just because it was so recent. It was interesting talking to a bunch of the dads that were there, because most of them have all gone back in the office. Watching that transition in them has been the weirdest thing ever. And I don't know why, one of the things I do appreciate about like Europe in particular, like mental health is really serious there. Take it crazy serious. And here we view it as, well, you're just lazy. You need time off. Well, I'm going to call absolute bullshit and fuck.
It's a luxury. It's seen as a luxury.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's everyone that believes that. I'm sorry, you're not my audience. Fuck you. Like, that is the wrong way of looking at it. And you're making everyone else feel guilty because of your ineptitude, your inability to see the value in human beings. That makes me sad. And so it was just weird watching these guys, because we hung out a lot during the pandemic, and then seeing them now, and they're like shells of their human being, right? They have to get up at 5. They're in traffic for 2 hours each way. They don't like their job. They're miserable. And they go in 3 days a week. I think that we've talked about this before, but I think that this is where vacation and personal time are linked. We need to push back on some of these things and ask better questions to get better answers in terms of, okay, what am I doing today in the office? Am I really needed? Or are you just checking a box? Because one of the things I've learned, like at Amazon and Walmart recently, is that their tax incentives in states don't work unless they have people in the office. So that's why a lot of these places, so like people that get these huge tax write-offs, especially in Texas and Missouri and other places they've moved to, if they don't have a certain amount of people in the office at any given point in time, they're incentivized. They lose that incentive. So they have to force people back. So the laws that were like, it's just weird, like how we think about these things, because it never was meant to do that. It was meant to bring business to the area, but now you're pissing more people off than you're retaining. And so I think it's just interesting that we should ask better questions and go back to the idea of sanity out there, because a lot of the time, here's a great example of a company that most people don't ever think about, but is blowing everyone away right now. And I'll give you 2 brief examples. One is Berkshire Hathaway. Right now, they have $200 and almost $300 billion with a B sitting idle right now, because they don't see any good investments out there. And rather than we have to put our cash to work, we have to do this, they're literally sitting idle, waiting for the opportunity, because they know an opportunity will arise. And rather than rush it, and rather than just throw money after things, they are being patient, deliberate, and it's paid off time and time and time again. The second one is Apple. Is an example that I use. I know you and I both use a lot of Apple products, but Apple in particular, right? They report sales and they think that's an important metric, but they're also focused on the user experience at the end of the day. What features are we really offering? What security features, all that kind of stuff. They ask different questions. They don't sweat the small details. They keep moving forward. They keep inventing, and they keep focusing on individuals, their people, and their customers very heavily. I give you two successful examples of companies that have over $200 billion in cash that aren't rushing, that aren't scrambling, that aren't chasing, the wind. They are respecting, and they're growing, and they're being patient. And it's obviously paid off, because if you look at Apple in the 80s, they were they were like the afterthought of everybody. Microsoft and Dell, and Dell didn't exist back then, but the PC market as a whole was like, oh, that's just noise. And now, they eat everyone else's lunch. If you need reference points and you are struggling with, is this the right approach? Look at almost every successful business over time, those that last. Okay. There's great examples of ones that had a great year, but then they fall apart. WeWork is a great example, just disappeared literally overnight a couple of days ago. It's just thinking about those things. So if you're worried about, am I thinking this right way? How am I going to make this work? Use good examples, cite these things, talk to people about this and say, I love working here. If your boss is saying you have to come in all the time, but before I come in, I want to ask you every day or every week, let's plan ahead. Do I really need to be here on XYZ day? Why do I need to be here? What is the expected outcome? Explain it to me, and let's work together on this. And asking you different questions so it's more probing, and not in a way where you're like, I'm not coming in, right? That's not the right approach. But if you're open-minded and proposing a solution, saying, look, I want to come in, but I want to make sure it's worth my time and yours. Let's plan this out better. I think it's going to result in better questions. It's going to result in better answers. And it's going to result in a lot of this fatigue that we're going through dissipating a little bit. I said a lot. I'll pause.
Well, I agree with everything you said. And I think ultimately it comes down to value. And, we've talked about this on some other episodes, but placing value in the wrong places. A lot of these companies want to prioritize and value false productivity. They want to focus on money being the end all be all on sales. But, sales are driven by experience and connection between people. So it's at the end of the day, I think a lot of these companies that are focusing on those things are going to get phased out, because especially the younger generations are very rebellious towards a lot of that stuff. And, I thought millennials, we had kind of started the charge with that. But my sister's generations and stuff, they're like, I'm not doing that for that. Or I'm not they're a lot more nope. So, if these companies want to survive, there's going to have to be a shift. And then to your point, there are companies that are already there. I think at the end of the day, it's again, choosing what you're willing to put up with. And you're prioritizing, what you're willing to put up with. You're setting your self-worth and your value and all these things based off of what you're willing to put up with. So for some of it, there's going to be companies that are not open to it. There's clients even too that will come and say, oh, I want this and I want that. And, you're looking at them like, well, that's not going to work. So I think it really is being stronger in your boundaries, but also remembering to check in with yourself and ask the question of, does this align with my values and priorities? And if it doesn't, figuring out what the solution is. Sometimes you can have those conversations like Justin is suggesting of prompting different solutions. Other times you got to go somewhere else. Sometimes the people you're surrounded with are the wrong people and you're holding on to something that was never meant to be yours in the first place.
I think that's beautiful. I think that's a great way of saying it. I think it's really, really important that we don't lose sight of that. Rather than getting frustrated and throwing our arms up in the air, we take action on it. That is what separates the successful from the successless.
Love that.
Blake, I got to say, this is a great episode. I had a lot of fun today. We talked about some serious things, but we talked about cellulitis. We talked about getting out and doing stuff. And most importantly, we talked about evaluating your situation and being pragmatic about it and realistic and not just hopeful for hope's sake. Not forever the optimist, but being realistic and assessing it in the right way and taking action to improve it. Because at the end of the day, no one's going to do that for you. You have to do it for yourself. Before we got in this call, it was fun talking to Blake because she had a couple milestones that she hit. She didn't talk about on here, but it was exciting to see her light up. And, it's fun. She's taken the action. She's done some cool things. And it's just exciting all the way around. So I think that you're going to go through pitfalls. If you're going through one now, I promise everything is temporary. At the end of the day, take the opportunities, right? Don't wait for the opportunities to come. Take the opportunities and especially go out and do stuff. If you're feeling like drained or whatever, work out, go on a walk. do something crazy, do a burpee, I don't know, talk to a friend. There's a million things you can do to get your head back in the game, because that's what we need as a society too, because we get so burnt out so quick that we forget to get back to it. And to get back to it is to be proactive and do something that enables you to get to that point where you're feeling productive again and not drained.
I agree. And I'm going to steal a previous tagline of listen to your body. And the reason I say that is because your body will tell you when you're close to burnout. There are always signs, but you have to take that step of what I was talking about, take that time for you to reflect on it and to acknowledge it. Oftentimes we have this idea of just continue rushing towards the finish line. But when you do that, you tie all your happiness and everything to the outcome. Slowing down to be able to be reflective of that and then acknowledge it and then shift is important. And as you start practicing that, you will be able to do it like this. You'll recognize it immediately. There'll be no like, oh, like my client the other day. Oh, I don't know what to do. I feel disconnected. It's because she wasn't acknowledging all the things that she knew were there because she wasn't taking that time. It goes past like just knowing you're tired and burnt out. You have to acknowledge it and then also figure out what the solution is and take that time for yourself to start being aware when your body starts telling you, hey, I'm tired, or when you start feeling demotivated is usually a good sign of either you've been pushing yourself too hard or you need a break. And sometimes it's as simple as taking a break in that moment for 10 minutes and you can get back to focused work. Other times you got to take a longer break. But if you're more aware of when that's happening and you're paying attention to it, you can start reducing how much time it takes for you to recover because you're not in this constant deficit. And I think that's kind of the goal, I would say, to kind of get into more of a maintenance versus always having to make up for the deficit. Because when you're really burnt out and you get into survival mode, it sometimes takes months, sometimes years to get out of that mindset. Once you're there, it's very hard because you have to acknowledge it, you have to see it and recognize it, but then you have to change your behavior. But by that point, there's like 50 billion things you have to change instead of just one or two adjustments. And so that would be my advice for everybody.
Okay. I think we've already decided on our next topic here. First of all, fantastic advice. Secondly, it's the desert of despair.
I like that.
I think.
Although I love the desert, so but it could be disparaging.
Peaceful environment, though, right? I think there's many beautiful things there. I mean, I've got a cactus behind my head, so I get you. Listen, Blake, as always, thank you. Thank you to our audience. We're looking for some more guests, so be on the lookout. We'll have some more on in the not so distant future. Most importantly, tell us what you're doing to take a break. What are you doing? Are you doing anything fun coming up? Are you stepping out of the office more regularly? Are you doing something to alleviate that bottleneck of stress in your life? What are you doing? Tell us, comment. Can't wait to hear from you.
Well, Justin, as they say, all good things must come to an end.
Alas, they must. However, this isn't the end because next week, same time, same channel, we drop another episode.
So get excited because we're going to be diving deeper into all the topics of the not so subtle truth about success and
the art of sucking less in the pursuit of it. So join the conversation below and don't forget to subscribe.